The WWE Instagram team was at it again this week, this time posting their ranking of John Cena's 5 greatest rivals. Not as bad of a list as they've done before. They've done some pretty horrendous lists before. This is not one of those. But they had The Rock at number 5, Batista at number 4, Brock Lesnar at number 3, Edge at number 2, and Randy Orton at number 1. I'm actually appalled by how many of you seem to agree with Randy Orton being in the number 1 spot. Or maybe you just accept it because, well, they had so many matches together. Of course he's number 1. As I said to somebody on Twitter, you and I can have 7,000 matches together. We can do that too. That does not make it an all-time great rivalry. That's like saying, what's the greatest wrestling show on television of all time? Well, it has to be Monday Night Raw because it's been on for so long. There's been so many episodes. That would be a terrible answer. I don't care how many matches the two of them had. Some of them were even good. I'm not saying they were all crap. I thought their I Quit match at that Breaking Point pay-per-view may have been the best match they ever had. I thought their Iron Man match even was pretty good. You would think, oh my God, an hour of Cena and Orton is like death. I actually remember thinking that, hey, this Iron Man match is pretty good. The rest of their feud and most of their matches were boring as all hell. And Orton never really had any kind of, in my opinion, never had any really significant impact on John Cena's career. Not the way that some other guys did who belong ahead of him on this list. So here's my order. Here's my list. Now, my list has changed, by the way, since I tweeted it out the other day because I gave this some more thought. And originally, when I responded to somebody, they're like, well, what would your top 5 be of his greatest rivals? And I said, well, I originally had AJ Styles on my list in the number 5 spot, but I have bumped him. I have since bumped him off the list. Here's my list. Number 5, I have The Rock. One of Cena's biggest feuds, if you count those comments he made even years earlier where he basically called out The Rock in interviews for never coming back. Come on, come back, do the eyebrow. Why doesn't he ever come back? So that thing was rooted, had many years of sort of, backstory to it. And then Rock came back. It was a big deal. His first real feud in 8 years or whatever it was. And they had 2 matches, right? Back-to-back WrestleManias. I liked their first match better than their second, right? They only had the 2. But the build-up, and especially the first match, I thought was really good. It felt personal. It felt like the old guard against the new guard. So I do think Rock belongs on the list. Number 4, and the reason I bumped AJ off my list, is Brock Lesnar. And I'll explain why. Cena never really could, in all of their matches and feuds over the years, Cena never really could figure out Brock Lesnar. Early in his career on SmackDown, Brock had Cena's number. You could even argue if Brock doesn't leave the company in 2004, maybe John Cena doesn't get his shot. Not as early as he did anyway. Brock leaving helped pave the way for the big John Cena push. If this was a list of, talents who had the most impact on John Cena's career, you can make the argument for Brock Lesnar being number 1 on that list. But I also look at it like this. Lesnar is like Doomsday to John Cena's Superman, or Bane to John Cena's Batman. He is the hulking monster who destroys the hero, one of Cena's toughest villains. The way Lesnar squashed him at SummerSlam in 2014, it was like Doomsday killing Superman, or Bane breaking Batman's back. And if you were to make a top 5 list of Batman's greatest rivals, I'll bet Bane would be on most people's list. For that reason, Lesnar should be on here. So I have him at number 4. Number 3, I have Randy Orton. Because he should be on the list, just not number 1. Number 2, I have Edge. And I will say this. If you have Edge on your list as seen as number 1 all-time greatest rival, I think that's a perfectly acceptable choice. I think it's a coin flip. I think it could go either way. You would not be wrong. The two of them had a great feud. They had some great matches together at a time when, Edge was really, getting the biggest push of his singles career, certainly up to that point. And I think Cena was already a made guy, but he also helped elevate Cena, I think, to another level with that whole feud. And I'll use another comic book analogy here. Edge really felt like the Joker to John Cena's Batman. He knew how to push his buttons. He was there to screw him over more than once. From the Money in the Bank cash-in to Edge helping RVD beat Cena that one time at that one-night stand show. And the Joker is Batman's greatest rival. So if you chose Edge, again, I'm not going to argue with you. My pick as Cena's greatest rival, number one, I know I once said the fans on a podcast when somebody asked me many years ago, but that would be a cop-out if I said the fans. The answer is CM Punk. He was the one name conspicuously missing from this list, and I know why. I'm not an idiot. But I still think it was dumb to leave him off the list. Even if you didn't put him at number one, to not even have CM Punk in the top 5 is ridiculous. You could argue that Punk in many ways was acting as an extension of those fans back in 2011 when he was out there, cutting promos on Cena, when he dropped the pipe bomb. Actually, in that promo, he said he actually liked John Cena. He said, John, I like you, John, but I hate what you represent. And I'd like to think that it was the same with the fans. They didn't really hate John Cena. They hated what he represented. Although I'm sure there were plenty of fans who legitimately did hate John Cena. They probably just hated the fact that he wrestled in jorts and sneakers and knew 4 moves and all the other excuses they would give. So yeah, you have people like that. But again, I'd like to think that a lot of it had to do with what he represented. Same with Roman Reigns. For all the people who booed him, they were booing what he represented. He wasn't a bad wrestler. It was just that to them, they, looked at him and he represented the hand-picked, forced choice in their minds, being shoved down their throat over other people who they liked more or they felt were more deserving of being in that spot. People resent you for it. Punk and Cena had fantastic chemistry in the ring. Their Money in the Bank match in 2011 is one of my all-time favorites. Easily, certainly of the last decade. Favorite match. Really, that whole pay-per-view is one of their best pay-per-views of the last decade. I don't know that I have seen a better atmosphere for a championship match on the main roster in WWE than I did watching that Cena-Punk match where Punk won the title in Chicago. Right up to the last match they had on Raw together to see who would challenge for the championship at WrestleMania in 2013 when they had that Raw match in February. It was just almost impossible for the two of them to go out there and have a bad match. But they were also polar opposites, which is what made this work so well. Cena was everything that CM Punk wasn't. Cena is the clean-cut guy, no tattoos, hand-picked face of the company, great spokesman for the company, talks like a robot, the whole 9 yards. Punk is a walking tattoo gallery. He's got this anti-authority attitude. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He doesn't play well with others. He was very much so not the hand-picked guy early on, right, to be the guy for the company. He was nearly let go in developmental and would have been were it not for Shawn Michaels sticking up for him in a meeting that one time. And then, of course, later on, he had an ally in Paul Heyman who went to bat for him. CM Punk is John Cena's greatest rival. You can make the case for Edge, but it's got to be one of those two. It is not Randy Orton.